That was funny. Hello, everyone.
Hey there.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hello. I just heard from Carl, and he's not going to be able to join us today. He has 1.5 feet of snow. He probably reached out to some of you as well. He's trying to set up his generator, but I'm not sure if it's going to be successful. So we might not have Carl today. And then I also heard from Mauricio. He's not going to be here either. He can't make it. So both of our chairs are missing. But let's see. I hope we do have quorum. Let's see. We don't have quorum yet, so give people a few more minutes to join. And if we don't,
can you run this meeting? Can you run this meeting, Reva, if we don't get if we get a quorum?
Yes, yeah, I could step in and try to do my best Carl impression for today's meeting.
Okay, good.
So we could still move forward if we do have a quorum. Yeah, and I haven't heard anything from, so I'm hoping, Liza Jane and everyone should be joining shortly. And Srishti. And I know, Jim, you have to leave a little bit early, so.
No, actually quite a bit early. I mean, I've got 45 minutes. I should be able to get back, but I'll be gone for about a half an hour, I think.
Well, if that's the case, we might want to, what time do you think you might get back?
I could probably get back certainly by 3.
Okay. We might want to, if we do reach quorum, we might want to start off with project approvals as soon as possible and start that discussion just while we have you before you head out. And I think we just got quorum. Let's see. Hello, Jane.
Hello.
Hello. Very happy to see you. You have just allowed us to reach quorum.
Sorry, I was having technical difficulties as usual.
No worries.
Microsoft always asks for weird things, and then.
Okay, actually, now we have quorum with Kelly here, I believe.
Yep.
Hi, Kelly.
Oh, yo. Hey.
Hello.
Nice to see you guys.
So we do now have quorum. I was just telling the group that Carl's not able to join today, unfortunately. He's dealing with 1.5 feet of snow, trying to put up a generator. Power went out, so a lot going on down there. And Mauricio is not able to join either, so I was a little concerned about reaching quorum for today's meeting, but we do have quorum now. Now, actually, after Kelly joined. But we have Jim who needs to leave in about 40 minutes. So we kind of have if Liza Jane isn't going to be joining, and well, Srishti should be joining shortly. So we might be okay, but I'm a little concerned about quorum, so I was thinking we should move forward, kind of skip ahead to the meat of the day, which is project discussions and project recommendations, while we do have that quorum. So is everyone okay with that plan for today? Okay, great. Thanks so much for being flexible. And for our guest speaker, Noel March is here. from Trout Unlimited. We should still be able to get to your project presentation right around the time that we had planned, which is right around 2 o'clock. All right. Well, so I think we're going to skip project updates and member updates. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. But before I do that, I want to thank, I see Greg from Deschutes Land Trust has joined today. Thank you for joining. I see Liz Perkin and Mike Toady from Oregon Hunters Association. And Tim Gressa. Thank you all for joining today. Let's see, anybody else that I missed? Well, of course, Jessica Watson. Thanks for joining, Jessica. All right, let me just go ahead and share my screen. We'll try to get the minutes out of the way real quick and then move into project approvals. Okay. So we'll start off with the minutes. Is there anyone who'd like to make a motion?
I would move that we approve the January 7th, 2025 meeting minutes with the continued authority to correct spelling, grammar, and punctuation.
I'll second it.
Great. That was quick. That business is done and out of the way. Minutes approved. All in favor? All right, I think I see everyone's thumbs. Perfect, thank you. All right, so, oh, I see Liza Jane, so I think we're going to be fine with quorum today. That's great. We can still move into this agenda item just in case we have any issues with quorum. So I'll just give a quick summary of the round 8 fall 2024 projects that were submitted, and then go over the project rankings and project score sheet with everybody. We can have a discussion and then move into the project recommendations. So for this request, fall 2024 call for proposals, round 8, it opened on August 30th and it closed on October 29th. And you had 52 proposals that were received. And that included $2.8 million in requests, and the average project request was for $54,000. And this was, but these are a little bit bigger projects than some that we've seen before, just because the average project request was driven up by the increased project cap for drought projects. And so we had 2.3 million total requested for a drought project. And so the group, you've already identified that you would like to spend about $1 million, which is what you have budgeted for this RFP. And then kind of looking at these numbers, you can see the odds of getting funded are about 1 in 3 for this round 8. And you can kind of see that the odds of getting accepted can decrease as we get more applications coming in and as the program gets larger requests for funding. So the review of projects was conducted by ODFW staff technical review team for level 1 of the review, and then level 2 reviews by the OCRF advisory committee. The review process has been completed, and I wanted to send out a huge amount of gratitude, and I'm sure the committee feels the same way, to all the staff technical reviewers that put time and effort into this. And huge amount of gratitude to the committee here for all the time and effort spent on these reviews of these projects for this round. So thank you all. I know it's a huge amount of time and it's a big lift, but really appreciate all that you do. And then, so just a reminder for those online, we do have 2 buckets of funding for this funding cycle: the drought package and the non-drought funds or base program funds. So OCRF has enough to grant about 800,000 to award for non-drought projects and about 200,000 for non-drought projects is available. And the project maximums for the drought funding bucket was higher than the non-drought fund. So that was 100,000. And then the project maximum for non-drought was 50,000. This is a summary of the 52 projects that were received. And it's showing that a little over 70% of projects of the 52 submitted projects fell into the drought category. And they were able to explain that they do fall into this category and why. The majority of the projects should be able to be funded with drought package funds for this RFP. And then this is showing for the top ranked 17 projects that went up to 1 million in funding. That's up for potential funding today. This is a very similar percentage. So just a little over 70% are drought package projects and 30% non-drought. So for the project classification, project applicants self-identified their project on the spectrum of conservation to recreation. And the pure conservation projects are in the dark blue, about 23%. Conservation with a recreation element is in orange, 35%. And then you have the even mix, which is right at the intersection between conservation and recreation, right in the middle. And then recreation with a conservation element is in yellow. And then the smaller slice of the pie is a pure recreation project. And so for the potential 17 projects, you can see the distribution is very similar. I'll just go back and forth real quick again so you can see that. Not a lot changing. You see the gray slice is getting a little bit bigger, so that even mix. And the yellow is shrinking just a tad. All right, and then moving into geography or ecoregion, where the projects are coming in is always an interesting and important thing to look into. So the column on the left is ecoregion. You have Coast Range, Blue Mountains, Columbia Plateau, and then across is the number of applicants. And so that's how you can read those numbers. Some regions that had less coverage were the near shore. And then quite a lot coming in from Willamette Valley and Blue Mountains and East Cascades. Now we can see with the 17 projects up for funding today is what that shift would be. So you can see actually a significant drop in Coast Range and nearshore, and a large amount of projects for funding for Blue Mountains region. So I'll pause there, see if there's any questions about that. I see a hand from Eliza Jane. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Reva. It would be interesting, even though it's not in our name of conservation recreation, it seems like there's a lot of proposals that are just for the purpose of studying something. I don't know what we'd call that, but it would be interesting to me to know the percentage of those that are for graduate work, studying something, if it's just the way they're picked that they land, or I'd just be curious about that. Is it possible?
Okay, so like a graduate research
Yeah,
project
Yeah.
specific to, so I do have in the next slide, I have the amount of research and monitoring projects,
yeah.
but I don't know if that's specifically what the
Well, I think right
data you're
now,
looking for.
Reva, we put them in conservation, right? That's where they would fit into the conservation type of project, because it's the study isn't usually recreation. So
Most likely, yeah.
yeah, and it would just, so maybe you've done it already with that.
Well, let me just, I'm actually going to move forward and see if this kind of addresses your
Okay.
question to the project type, which shows, it does show research. It breaks it out into different types of projects. So how many monitoring projects we receive out of the 52 that were submitted, research projects, restoration. You can see most of the projects that were do have an element of community engagement in their built into their project type. And then also many of them are having an element of education and or awareness that's associated with the project. So, and then 22 outdoor access, one other. And then for the 17 top ranked projects, you can see here, it's a very similar distribution in project type. I'll just go back and forth one more time so you can kind of see that. There's a little bit of a shift in outdoor access, goes down a little bit. And restoration. But it's a very similar distribution. So again, most of the projects have an element of community engagement and education, which is nice to see. And then for Eliza Jane's question about research, looks like 7 of them would be have a element of research in their project. All right, and then the last bit of, oh, I'm just going to mute someone who just joined. Okay. The last bit of information for 17 projects is primary taxa that will be addressed. So quite a few of these projects will have an impact on and addressing the conservation priority taxa mammals. 7 of them plants, 8 of them will be addressing birds, 6 fish, 7 amphibians, 4 reptiles, 6 invertebrates, and then 2 projects that will not be addressing conservation priority species. And those are likely our more recreation, pure recreation projects. All right, just for the sake of time, I'm going to skip over this timeline for now. And then I can do a very quick budget update. So donations is something that is always nice to see, but this is from since the beginning of OCRF, you have now received a total of 581,000 from ELS and point of sale. So that's an incredible amount. That's being donated to the OCRF from hunters and anglers as they're checking out and buying their licenses. And then private donations, about 1.3 million. So that's incredible. And then quick budget update. It's very similar to, nothing really has changed since from last month's budget update, but about 860,000 in your base program funds. Drought package has 1.6 million, so you'd be able to do 800,000 in this RFP and still have 800,000 remaining for the spring RFP. And then Wildlife Crossing lottery bonds are scheduled for sale in March. So next month. 5 million. All right. I will now move into the going over the project scores and rankings. And let me just orient you to this sheet here. So, and for those online, you can follow along with them. If you'd like to pull it up on your own screen, we have posted this to the meeting page as well. So feel free to pull that up if you don't want to see it on a small screen here. So on the far left column of this sheet, you will see project number, project title, lead organization, and then we also have geography, project classification, requested funds, and then on the far right, you're going to see raw score and rank sum. So the best possible rank sum is a 2. And so that's when the it was the highest ranked project for each reviewer. And so it received a 1. And then that's added together to get that rank sum. And so that's a 2. And then the highest raw score possible is 150 points. Oh, and I think we have Carl just joined. All right, so Carl, welcome.
Hi,
Glad you're
Can you
able
hear
to join us.
do you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Okay, good, because I'm on a different phone. I mean, a different computer.
And we can see you too.
All right, so Mark, are you running the show?
I was running the meeting.
Okay, well, keep going. I'm pretty
All
just
right,
right now.
sounds good. So Carl, we were just going over the project scores and rankings for the drought package just right now. And okay, so I wanted to explain just a little bit on how that rank sum is calculated because that can be kind of a confusing thing. So basically, by looking at each reviewer's project list of the pool of projects that they reviewed, the top project with the highest score receives a 1 from that reviewer's list of projects. The second receives a 2, and so on from there. Since each project has 2 OCRF committee member reviewers, that the rank scores are added together to give the rank sum, and then the lower the score, the higher the rank. So, and that's why the top project has a 2, which means for both reviewers that reviewed that project, it was their top project. And then the ranking is done to remove any bias due to variance between reviewers. For those that tend to score higher, they might have an unfair advantage over projects scored by those that tend to give lower scores. And so that's why we do that rank sum process. But even with all this, you can kind of see here that the raw scores and the rank sum are pretty correlated. So the highest raw scores are corresponding to the highest ranked projects in this list. All right. Carl, anything you'd like to add?
No, not at this point.
All righty. So as you can see, so the first page here for the drought package projects, this is showing projects that ranked between a 2 to a 5. And then, okay, to advance to the next page, everybody? So then on the next page, we have up to, sorry, what was that? Okay, just some. So we have up to project number 38, Pine Creek Conservation Area, Spring and Mesic Habitat Restoration. That would mean a total expenditure of $829,452 from the drought package funds. And now I will move into the non-drought project rankings, if everyone's all right to move forward. Okay. So here you have the same type of spreadsheet, but this is showing the non-drought projects, of which there were a total of 14, I believe. And if you go down the list to the project number 30, Nature in Focus, a rural community science initiative, that would equal $198,067 to be taken from the awarded from the base program for non-drought projects. All right. And now we can move into any committee discussion on what you're seeing with the project rankings, how you're feeling about how these all came out. And yeah, I'd like to hear from the committee on what you think about the top ranked 17 projects for round 8. Mark Stern, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Reva. I guess I just share a couple observations. One, I think we had a lot of really good projects, and I found it really difficult to distinguish between which ones are necessarily better. There were a lot of good projects, and unfortunately, we don't have enough funding to fund all the good projects. So it's that's a challenge here. So I think that's the good news. We had a lot of good projects. I think the scoring process is a good effort here. I think we'd probably all acknowledge it's a little imperfect in some ways, but I think it seems to flush out pretty well. I guess going back to one of your earlier slides, Reva, you were showing community engagement, and I think as we've all seen, community engagement or of one sort or another is one of the scoring criteria. So as I noticed, at least in some of the projects I reviewed, there were some projects that were more conservation focused that did not have a community engagement component to it. And I think those don't compete as well just because it doesn't touch on that community engagement criteria, which in some ways I understand, and in some ways I think is also sort of unfortunate at the same time. But and overall, we had a lot of projects with community engagement as a focus that ranked fairly high, and it was also interesting to see that the ODF&W staff was very plauditory of those projects and supportive of this being a good approach to achieving some of ODF&W's priorities. So just kind of a running narrative there, but those are some of the thoughts that went through my head. The other one is that, and I don't know how we do it, but I really didn't spend much time looking at the projects other than the ones I reviewed. And I think in contrast to maybe the first couple of years when we went through this, sort of feel like I'm missing out on some sort of roundtable discussion where we get to share a little bit about what are the projects that were good or excited us and sort of cross-pollinate that way. So those are my thoughts for the moment anyway.
Thanks, Mark. Maybe we could, talk about how to incorporate more of a round table in the next round. I like that. Go ahead, Kelly. Oh, I think you're still on mute, Kelly.
I am. I lowered my hand, but I didn't unmute myself. Thank you. Related to this, but also sort of naming the elephant in the room. Just for my understanding, are any of our funds federal that are like the color of this money? Because I'm just thinking about this might also have an impact on the way that we decide to spend money also. So if you could speak to that quickly.
Great question, Kelly. I had the same panic as you. And so our federal ARPA funds, COVID relief funds that we received $1 million were deposited into the OCRF in 2022. And those have all been obligated, and there is no risk to those being frozen at this time. So, and those have also mostly been spent out by projects. Great question. Go ahead, Maret.
Well, I wanted to just thank the ODF&W reviewers because I found their comments so incredibly helpful, and just on so many aspects of things that I'm just not familiar with. So I really look at those first and really value what they say. And so I was really glad to see Bring It Outside from Hike It Baby making the #1 because of the incredible glowing reviews from ODF&W saying that it was like as close to a gold standard project as they'd ever seen. And I mean, I've never seen a review that happy with a project. So I'm glad that it made the top. So but yeah, again, there's so many good projects and not enough money. So we all know that. So thank you, everybody.
Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, Maret, that aspect of our whole process, the fact that we have staff review it is really powerful. And makes, I think, us unique in many ways. OWEB has a similar thing where they have regional review teams, but this is a little more focused in many ways. And one of the things I'm in the process of doing is talking to Oregon Community Fund, because we have such a nice review process and we have so many projects we can't fund, that they're looking at this group of projects. We're not expecting them to act, but looking at these projects as if there might have been a way that they could have funded them, so that in the future we would submit these to the Oregon Community Foundation, because they really appreciate our reviews. They appreciate the thoroughness. So that's just to reiterate the importance of the staff and how valuable that is for everybody.
Yeah, that's great. The Oregon Community Fund is can help bolster the work that OCRF does. Liza Jane.
Thank you, Riva. I had a one that I reviewed, and the technical reviewers didn't like it at all. And I felt like their comments, they didn't understand it the same way that I understood it. And so I read it like 17 times and I still felt like I understood it. And I wanted to be able to reach out and maybe ask, like, what am I missing? Or, you know, did you miss this part on a project? And wasn't sure if that was possible. I went along after, seriously, at least 17 times I read that, looking for what they saw. And it didn't impact anything here. So there's no, it's just a look back at, is that possible?
Absolutely, Liza Jane. So if you still want to discuss with them, that's an option. If you're still curious, I can make that happen.
Okay.
And then for future, it's absolutely a possibility. I was thinking of making it like there's a period of time that we could work into our review schedule that is meant for time that technical review team could be available for committee reviewer questions for exactly what you just brought up. So I think that would be a really good thing to work into our process.
Yeah, I value their input so much. And like everyone has said, it's just, they're they're really smart and it's so helpful, and they really bring into what ODF&W is doing that I may not know about. It really ties that, and so if that's possible, I think it would sure help me out.
Yeah. I think it would be good to work that into our timeline of when's a good time for that, for those questions and discussion to happen between the review teams.
Cool.
Thanks for bringing that up. And also reach out after if you'd still like to have that discussion. Okay. Looks like James Fraser just joined. Thanks for joining, James Fraser. All right. Carl, did you want to take over anything for the project recommendations discussion?
Did you, Reva, did you go over our funding? Where we are
I
at?
did. I can pull that up real quick. I did a quick budget update, but I can go back there.
Because really, I think the decision is where do we draw the line? We have, Reva has put in where if we're going to spend about $1 million, that's indicated by the two sums on the drought and non-drought packages. So Reva, once again, can you show that where?
Yeah, definitely.
Just so I can think it through.
Mhm.
Because we have one more funding round. So with the drought package, we have a little over 800,000 for each round. I think Reva went up to like 829,000 or something for this one because it would have been under 800. That leaves us around 800 for the drought. Now the base program, we've got a little bit more there. We have 800,000. We intended to spend 200. That money is flexible. We could spend that for drought, for non-drought, whatever we wanted. So the question then becomes, do we just stick with about $1 million this time? Or are there some really, really compelling projects that we would likely use that base program funding to fund that are, say, below the line that Reva put on there? Otherwise, when we get to the next biennium, we'll have around 1.2 million to spend, which is fine. I think you could argue both ways. Part of it is if there's just like a project that one or more of you just think, oh my God, we really need to fund that. And I'll use this opportunity as a time. I hate to put Jane on the spot, but Jane, her husband, have been so incredible in what they have done to pick up the slack. She's the inspiration basically for me reaching out to Oregon Community Foundation. And I'm saying, look, if it's good enough for Jane and Mark, it better be good enough for the Oregon Community Foundation. And that was actually pretty persuasive to them that Jane and Mark have been doing this. So some of that decision making might be influenced. Jane, if you have looked at these lists, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot. We don't anticipate or expect anything from you. It could be nothing or something, but it influences our decision making.
Jane, I think you're on mute.
Still not working.
Still on mute.
There, did that work?
Yeah,
That
now we hear.
Okay, great. Yeah, I looked at these to see, I actually am funding some other big projects in this round. And so I didn't look too careful at these. I saw the next two projects on the list. I scored the number 52, the Willamette Valley Wetland Conservation Project. I thought that was a fairly important one. Just as a landowner on an island where there are lots of wetlands. And I really like the idea of that one. But, you know, we could maybe provide some partial funding to that, but I don't know if that would get us up to, I mean, it looks like they're asking for 67,000, so that would put us over that, what was it, 889? If we included that one in the mix, how much over the line would that put us?
Quite a bit.
I
Okay,
think it would
Jane,
mean
I was-
about, put it at to about 890, I believe. Let me do the
and we
quick math.
had, what was the amount? What, I'm sorry, what was the amount we had? That was on a different screen.
We have 1.6 million in drought package.
Well, so we
remaining.
have,
But this-
if we wanted to split the difference
Mhm.
between this biennium and next biennium, I'm sorry, this RP and next RP, we could spend 1.1 million. And then the
Mhm.
next go round, we would have 1.1 million again. Or maybe
Mhm.
did I do that math wrong? We might even have a little more, like 1.3. No, that's right. I think we would, if we spend another 100, that, God, Reba, this is kind of important. So could you go back to that slide?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I want to see the amount we could have spent up to in drought, in the drought.
Well, so
fund.
we're pretty
see
much
how close
maxed
we are.
out on drought. We're maxed
So,
out, but with that base program,
uh-huh,
that is, we could spend that on anything. We could spend that on drought. We could spend it on a
mm-hmm.
outdoor equity project. We've got that flexibility. So
So what's the difference between the million that we said we were going to spend and the amount that these 17 projects? I just haven't done the math.
we're right at 1 million. We're just over 1 million. Like
We're
one
at
point.
1,027,000 with
Okay,
the 17. Mhm.
and we said we were going to be at just 1 million, right?
1 million,
So we're
yeah.
already over.
Yeah. So, but again, looking at the money we have left, we have roughly 2.4 million
Mhm.
with adding the base program and the drought package. So we could even, if we split it, we would still have 1.2 this round. So we have
Mhm.
2.4 to spend, but we don't want to go down to zero. I think it's wise to leave some money. So let's say we went to 1.1 this time, 1.1 the next time. We still have 200,000 that we had in our pockets for other things. Liza Jane?
Thank you, Carl. I'm wondering about these projects, the ones that we would choose to fund. Are there any that I'm worried about them counting on federal dollars that may not come through and therefore their project will come up short? Do we take that into consideration? We can see that on their budgets, right?
That was not considered at this point. I think things are so in flux that I don't think we know. I don't think,
Yeah.
trying
I
to
was-
bring that into the equation just complicates things.
I was
Because
thinking more about having a cushion. So if there was don't we have an emergency line that we can go to in case of emergency where we can act quickly with some money? Is that correct?
We
Or is
have-
that,
No, we do. We have,
okay.
there's a chunk of money associated with the Fishhawk Lake settlement that's sitting with Oregon Wildlife Foundation. we're holding on to that. That's like helping to pay Reva's salary. That is for emergency stuff, or just like we run out of money, we can go into that. And I think that's might be as much as 800,000 still, or maybe 600,000. So it's a chunk of change that we have for that kind of thing. So I think that we can look at this as money that we can pretty much spend. But again, we don't necessarily want to go to zero. The other alternative is to wait till the last RFP and then spend it all then. I mean, I just want us to be thinking about it so that we use this money in the best way. I don't want to just gloss over it and do it, because I mean, I think trying to figure out what the federal government is going to do is just about impossible right now. So we just take that out of the equation. Kelly?
Yeah, I was actually thinking kind of along this same lines a little bit as Liza Jane, and I understand that there's a lot of unknowns, but I was also just going to maybe advocate for leaving it at the 1 million-ish now and then saving our other pot, because I think things will move around and shake loose still. But right now there's no EPA funding, there's no NOAA funding, Forest Service can't fund anything. I mean, there's a lot of no funding. So I feel like almost like we might be this bright light or tunnel, perhaps, depending on things, how they shake out in the next cycle, and that we might be a pot of money that is reliable, or people can find the places. I mean, I have several projects right now too that we're just bending over backwards and trying to figure out where the other monies will come from. And I have the, I guess, the blessing of time a little bit on some of those projects, but I think that you'll see people retooling over these next 6 months and trying to figure out how to pull things across the finish line. So I don't know, I can, that's why I asked about the federal money. So I was like, do we need to spend it now, or can we like hold tight for a minute and be a landing place for some projects? So I would sort of vote to keep it at our 1 million now and over next time. Hi, doggers.
Well, and that's a good, that's,
Oh, that was
Love how
Carl's
this,
dogs.
like, I know, like, mutes out though, like background noise, but it sounds like his dogs took over his voice.
Yeah, it looks like he went to go check on his dogs. Go ahead, Mark Stern.
Yeah, Commissioner Labhart, Mark, I was just going to ask you, from being on the commission and where you sit, if what other insights you might have to sort of where we're at and perspective on the conversation we're having at the moment.
Thanks, Mark. I really don't. I think our meeting next week, we're going to get some better insights into what the situation is, but I don't really have a perspective. Haven't had a chance to talk to Debbie about it. I don't know if Jessica has anything or not, but I do not have a perspective, and I could speculate, but it'd be just shooting in the dark. So sorry about that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Jessica.
Yeah, it's unsatisfactory, but I also don't have any additional insight to provide at this time. Still uncertain.
That seems to be the name of the game. It's just uncertainty at this moment.
I would offer this, and I was going to try to put it in a chat to Carl, but the Roundhouse Foundation has been very receptive to funding some of our projects. Do we know if anybody has reached out to them about some of these projects that didn't get above the line, and send them our evaluations and see if they might be willing to consider funding some of these? Has anybody done any of that?
Well, we could wait till Carl gets back, but I believe oh, there he is.
So we're in
think
agreement
he-
then. Carl will chair that meeting and do all the work behind the scenes for us. Is that what we're in all agreement to? So, oh, hi, Carl.
This, another neighbor's power just went out, so
Oh,
we got a real mess here.
Hmm.
But thank God for generators. I got the internet and the computers and everything working on a gas generator, so.
Huh.
And
So
our
Carl-
pellet stove.
So Carl, I was just bringing it up to the group. Have you or anybody else reached out to the Roundhouse Foundation? You know, and the Oregon Community Foundation, of course, is pretty viable. But in the past, the Roundhouse Foundation has been receptive to funding some of our projects. And you know, if nobody has, you know, I could reach out to them since I know the executive director pretty well.
Actually, I have had conversations with her about that.
Okay.
But, I mean, it doesn't hurt for you to put in your 2 cents for sure. In
Well, I
fact,
can-
what you might do, Mark, since you do have a relationship with them, is just do what I'm doing. Suggest that they do what I'm doing with OCF. Just like send them the list, and like not and say there's no expectation. Just take a look at it, because if we were going to, in the future, if we were going to do something a little more formal, and this with the federal situation like it is, maybe this is more compelling than it even was before. But if we're going to do that, we would have to have the applicants be aware that we might be getting funding from another source, and they have to be willing to have that entity look at their project. Like if we were the clearinghouse, we got all these projects and then sent them out to Roundhouse or OCF, they could pick one that was maybe one we were going to fund or one that's below what we were going to fund. It wouldn't matter because that just increases the pot. And that becomes more compelling. So Carlos, I've sent him the list. He hasn't gotten back to me one way or the other, but you might do the same with, what is it Borla?
Aaron Borlo.
Aaron.
She's the executive director. Mhm.
Yeah, you might reach out to her and say, hey, take a look at this and send her the list of projects.
Yeah, I can do that and just see if there's any interest in considering some of these moving forward. Then I'll touch base with Reva if so.
Yeah, Reva, just send them the same spreadsheet you sent me.
alrighty. I can do that.
Good first step.
I've talked to Erin about this very thing, so she'd be expecting it.
Hmm.
Eliza Jane?
I was wondering if we asked permission from the people writing the proposals that we share them.
That's actually what Carl was just talking about.
Yeah.
When we thought about this, I spoke with I got some help from DOJ just to figure out if that would even be possible, if we could send them the list before the committee made their recommendations from that pool of projects that applied to the OCRF. And the best thing to do is to ask the applicants ahead of time if they're okay with that. But it's a lot cleaner probably if this is happening after the committee, after the OCRF goes through their process, because they have, the OCRF has we have our reputation of going through this pretty rigorous 2-level review process, and to send that out before the committee makes their decisions is something we'd have to ask applicants permission for, to kind of to get that permission ahead of time.
And we wouldn't need it after we make our decision?
After it's fine. We're just sending out potential projects for funding to potential funders, and just kind of widening the net and the impact of OCRF.
These lists are public lists. I mean, we
Yeah.
can send them. And we're not expecting, this is more just to say, hey, is this interesting to you? Is there something here? Because when I talked to Carlos Garcia, he goes, oh, we have, he has funders, he has access to funders that are really interested in certain things. Like, let's say it was a beaver project, and he could then kind of go to his funder and say, look at this great beaver project, and see if they would want to fund it. And that just broadens our reach with these projects. And this may not work, but it's just, we're just kind of feeling it out and see. I mean, again, Jane and Mark are the pioneers in what they've done and showing us how, I mean, they've funded some fantastic projects that we did not fund. And even let's say that they liked a project that we did fund and they funded it instead of us, and we can just move down the line a little bit more. So again, this is all kind of mirrored on Mark and Jane's contribution. And again, we're just exploring it. It may not happen, but it's worth a look.
Yeah, I'm all down with that 100%. I'm thinking about the people that are writing the grants to us, and being a grant writer, I know that I shift my proposal based on who's reading it and what their most important values are. So like we see it when we're saying we want community engagement, then grants that may not include that, if it wasn't part of the metric, would look different to another program. So without their permission, I guess, to be able to share their proposal as it was written to us, I would think that they would want a word in on that.
Yeah, we have to do that according to whoever the legal advice from the state. They said, if you're going to do that officially, then you have to, on the front end, say to them, hey, we're also going to send this to, let's say, the Roundhouse Foundation or OCF.
Yeah.
But we didn't do that this round. So we're just sharing what is a public list with them, just to see if it's like enough to pique their interests. Just to give an example of the kind of projects that we have.
Got
and
it.
Carl can come back and say, nah, these don't really fit any of what we're doing. But he might say, yeah, I think we could have funded 3 or 4 of these. And it's all just to kind of check that out. Jane?
Just speaking for myself, when I look at these proposals after the committee is met, and it's a $50,000 proposal, but the part of it that really interests me is the research part or the whatever part, and I can kind of see like, oh, they've added this on for community engagement. I have been known to just reach out to them and say, hey, I don't have 50,000, I've got 20,000. And the part of this I'd really like to fund is this. And so, I mean, I'm smart enough to look at their proposal and realize which parts of it, they may have in there because it made them score better for this project, and to see whether or not that is the part that, is a deal breaker, or whether that's something like I can fund this part of it. What's happened on a couple of them, the BAT project that is way above the line, so it's going to get approved. I actually funded them for last field season, and said, you know what, if I were you, I would reapply to OCRF because you came really close to making the cut last time. And if I can give you this amount of money just to kind of get you through a field season, and then you can reapply to OCRF and maybe get the rest of what you're asking for. And they were like, yes, definitely. And that's what they did. And now they've gotten their funding. So just because they might have written it different, first of all, they don't have a chance to apply to our foundation outside of the OCRF process, because we don't take just, we don't have like an application process. And I only look at OCRF projects or projects from Oregon Wildlife Foundation or other things that are sort of my pet projects. So, they don't have an opportunity. And I think that Oregon Community Foundation could be kind of the same, that there isn't a separate process for getting to some of those other foundations. So it's really what Oregon Community Foundation, what our foundation sees, it's like, oh, these projects have been vetted, they've been scored, ODFW staff people have looked at them, and then based on that, wow, these were really close to making the cut, but didn't. And like for instance, I looked down this list, and the one that caught my eye is way down the list. It's the one about the Gophers. I'm like a sucker for that. and I just might reach out to them and say, hey, if I could give you a little bit of funding, could you get this going? And then maybe
I was with you, Jane. I reviewed that project. It's a great project.
It is a great project, isn't it? But I have the liberty of saying, like, hey, it didn't score the highest, but it intrigues me. So tell me more.
Well, again, Jane and Mark have been the model for this concept, and maybe and also, if you all recall, the Oregon Zoo did the same thing.
Right.
They had 25 grand, and that's just too much trouble for them to have an RFP for that. So they just gave us the 25 grand. And I think they said, we really like this project, and we put that towards that project. And that let us go 25 grand down the list. So anyway, it's just an outside the box thing, and we'll see how it goes, but y'all need to know we're doing it. Marette?
Well, I was just thinking about what Liza Jane said and wanted to echo that. I think, for instance, Roundhouse Foundation, they have a very strong arts emphasis. And when I worked for the Forest Service, when we applied for grants with them, they always wanted to see an art component. So, that is something that could probably be added to some projects. And I didn't see any art components in anything I reviewed. Maybe there was some somewhere else, but
there was a coloring book.
Oh yeah. Well, so anyway, I agree but I think some of that could be probably negotiated later if they thought it was interesting and they said, could you add a component of art? So anyway, yeah, I agree with Liza Jane on that one, but thanks.
So I'm sorry, there's another guy that lost power and we're trying to figure things out. So when I left, Kelly had just made some really compelling comments about just holding on to that money. And I'm sort of swayed by that. I'm totally fine with that. Did you guys talk any more about that when I left or not? Jane?
Well, when you're saying that, Liza Jane, are you saying to stop at the 17 projects that we have? That does put us a little over by 30,000. But I'd be okay with going that 30,000 over.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
As opposed to take it back down to $1 million.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Just
good with
not, just the consideration of not, because everything's so much in the air that it's a time to be a little more conservative for me in our spending, is where I was looking. And same what Kelly said. Yeah, what Kelly said too.
I think that's really good thinking. I like that rationale. I hadn't considered that, but I'm not out there experiencing what people like Kelly are. So that sounds great. Jane, do you still have your hand up or is that not? Okay. Well, I think at that point then, Reva, maybe go back to the two lists. And like go to the one that shows the cutoff. So at this point, it sounds like nobody has any heartburn about the projects that are in that list. And I think Reva did a really nice job of ranking them and scoring them. And so I think we're good with just going ahead and approving this particular list to the Pine Creek Conservation Area Spring and Mesic Habitat Restoration for a total sum of $829,452. Reva, did you happen to have well, there you go. would anyone like to make that motion?
Yeah, I will. I hereby move to approve the top ranked 12 drought projects from the OCRF Round 8 Fall 2024 RFP totaling $829,452 in expenditure from the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Fund.
And I
I
will second
second.
that.
And we got 2 seconds, one from Jane, one from Rhett. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Looks good. Kelly, are you good with it?
Yep, definitely. I got my thumbs up.
Great. Good. Okay, wonderful. So let's go to the second list, Reva. That was really thoughtful conversation. As usual, you guys just bring great stuff to the table here. All right, so here's our other one. We have 5 projects. So we would stop at Nature in Focus, a rural community science initiative with the High Desert Museum for a total sum of $198,067. Reva, do you happen to have that? I got to say, it just kills me to see some of the projects we don't fund. It's still just as painful.
It's tough. I hereby move to approve the top ranked 5 non-drought projects from the OCRF Round 8 Fall 2024 RFP, totaling $198,067 in expenditure from the Oregon Conservation and Recreation Fund.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Liza Jane. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Marat? Mark? Or I guess Mark doesn't vote. Good. So we have a quorum. Reva, I think we do.
You do, yes. It was
Okay.
I was a little nervous in the beginning of the meeting, but we definitely have quorum now.
Okay, so we passed that. So that's great. Once again, another really wonderful slate of projects. It's just so great reading these things and what people are doing. And Jane, I reviewed that bat project, and I appreciate the backstory you gave. Makes it even more cool what you and Mark are doing, because that's a really cool project, and I'm great. It's great they came back and we were able to fund that. So thank you for that. Any other comments about this round of projects?
I'm just going to say, from money being removed all over the place, it feels like a blessing to be sitting in a place where we can give money away. So I'm grateful for this group and this time.
And that situation just makes it all the more compelling for us to really try to find ways to leverage. It shows how important we are. We got to carry this message to the legislature somehow, how important role we're playing. So we'll keep doing that. Okay, so I wanted to be here for this, but it's snowing like here. It's blizzarding again here. I've got to go do some plowing and make sure my generator has gas. And so I'm going to sign out, Reva, unless there's some other compelling thing I need to be here for.
No, thanks, Carl. We appreciate you joining in the midst of your emergency power.
No, this
blizzard.
is great. I mean, this is such a wonderful thing to be able to do. I appreciate everybody's input and what all they've done.
Good luck
So,
to the storm, Carl.
Okay. All right. Well, adios. See you later.
Good luck, Carl. All right, go ahead, Liza Jane. I see your hand up.
Thank you. I was going to speak up earlier when we were looking at our budget, and especially I think it's ELS, the electronic. And since I just got my combination license online with ODF&W, and I'm going along, trying to figure that out and what I'm going to get. And it says OCRF $10 donation. And then you can't really click that, but when you go to your card to check out, then you can say how much. And I wondered who decided to put $10. Because I think
Yeah,
I
Huh.
think it's limiting to people.
Hmm.
And you know, it's easy to click 10, and then when you have opportunity to get 50 later, you're not going to do it. So
Okay. Yeah,
thanks.
thanks for that. I can follow up with the ELS and some staff and figure out where that 10, does it say $10 suggested donation?
It just says OCRF $10 donation,
Oh,
which I
okay.
thought was going to be my only option until I got to the cart. I could see I could do more, but it just seems, oh, there's Mark. Okay. It seemed limiting.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I can follow up with our ELS staff and figure that out. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, those of us who have been around since day one, I think originally, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, Elijah Jade, but for those of us that were around originally, I think the $10 was, we were thinking that, there's how many 100,000 people that apply for their license, and if we add $10 to that, we got $1 million. And so that's what we were thinking originally, that it would be really easy for people just to click on the $10 when we were first starting OCRF. And so I totally agree with you. Maybe we could take that away now and just say, hey, if you want to donate to OCRF, just click here, and then you can write in whatever you want. So but that was the original thinking.
Yeah, I understand that. And my thought was, well, they were being gentle, but $10 for a cup of coffee. So $25, and there's 100,000 people donating,
Totally agree.
Awesome.
Well, thanks, Mark. It's good to have folks that have been around since the beginning and know all these backstories to have. All right. Well, I want to kind of move us ahead to our guest speaker, because I believe that's next, and he's Noel March is here, so I'd like to give him the floor. So we have Noel March from Trout Unlimited here to speak on the Sheep Creek Stewardship Project, and I will let you take it away, Noel, and I'll stop sharing.
All right, thanks, Reba.
Yeah,
so I'm Noel March. I'm a project manager here with Trout Unlimited in Northeast Oregon, and I work out of La Grande. And I just want to say thank you to you all for inviting me to present here on the Sheep Creek Stewardship Project, which of course you all funded. So we're really grateful for that. And also need to give a big shout out to our partners with the U.S. Forest Service and the BLM here, and all the other partners that help make this work possible. So this was funded in part by the OCRF, and it was completed during the 2023 field season, and then this past summer in 2024. And Sheep Creek is a high priority stream for restoration in the Grand Ronde Basin. It's designated critical habitat for steelhead, Chinook, and bull trout, and it's also habitat for Pacific lamprey and really a whole host of other species. The project area is 4.5 miles long on Sheep Creek, which is in the upper Grand Ronde Basin, about an hour from La Grande. And it's on the Wallowa-Whitman National Forest. About 4 miles of it is on the National Forest. And then there's a small half-mile section on the Vail District of BLM land. And unfortunately, it's got a long history of heavy grazing. It's called Sheep Creek for a reason, as well as pretty extensive logging in the area, road building, and of course, lots of beaver trapping back in the 1800s. And this caused what we call channel incision, which is downward erosion of the channel, which simplifies the habitat over time by cutting off side channels and wetlands, and really leaving high and dry a lot of the habitats that we now know are important for rearing fish and all the other wildlife that depend on wetlands. So these photos on the left are Sheep Creek, and this is the condition of Sheep Creek back in 2018 before the project. And you can really see it's pretty simple habitat. There's not a lot of cover, not a lot of depth variation, very few, just kind of a bowling alley lane, straightened channel. Whereas this photo on the right is a stream in Idaho called Dagger Creek that we think is closer to what Sheep Creek historically looked like. And there's pretty extensive beaver dams, really robust shrub communities. And this valley is just a massive network of dams, pretty large beaver ponds, canals that beavers have dug, and channels. And this valley is about a couple 100 feet wide, so really similar to the size of Sheep Creek. This is a bird's eye view with some of the main flow paths there outlined in blue. And it's just huge scale and complexity. And this, it's also wet here from toe slope to toe slope of the valley, even in late August when everything else is dry. So I think one of the key points about this is it's a really dynamic habitat. It's always changing. Beavers are always making changes to the landscape, and as well as flow, high flows. So moving back to Sheep Creek, TU and our partners recognized that Sheep Creek really needed a jump start before it could become a self-sustaining ecosystem like Dagger Creek. So the Sheep Creek Stewardship Project came into play, which included the construction of lots of beaver dam analogs, or BDAs, and planting, which was funded by the OCRF, along with a larger mechanized effort that involved some channel fill, and then lots of excavator placement of trees and large woody debris. And the goals of this project were to provide habitat for steelhead and salmon, our key species here, as well as beavers. There's also lots of wild ungulates here, so elk and deer, waterfowl, and any other wildlife that use these areas. Also to provide drought resilience and wildfire resilience. One of the great things about when the valley is hydrologically connected is it stores water from high flows during the spring into the dry season and slowly releases those flows and provides a lot of habitat that is around even in drier years. And it's also, we've seen with some of the wildfires recently around Oregon, that beaver wetlands are sometimes the only places that actually survive, just because of how swampy it is. So, and then a real key goal was engaging lots of young adults from all backgrounds. And this illustration here is meant to show the progression that we're hoping to achieve here, and basically a slow transition from incised, simplified stream to really complex, self-sustaining ecosystem with that doesn't require human intervention. So the water is watering the vegetation is supporting the beavers, and the beavers are maintaining the whole thing. So with the OCRF grant funded the construction of 50 BDAs and also adaptive management of structures. So we built some in 2023 and then came back in 2024 and built more, as well as shored up and made some additions to the ones we did in 2023. We also led a volunteer planting day with 15 volunteers from local communities, mostly the La Grande area. And then throughout the course of it, directly engaged 16 hand crew members and who are from all kinds of backgrounds. And this hand crew work is completed through the Northeast Oregon Hand Crew Initiative, which is a TU-led roving hand crew. And we work with Youth Corps, the Northwest Youth Corps, as well as the Idaho Conservation Corps, and contract crews from Anna Branch Solutions, which is a pretty well-known restoration contractor. And this is a model that we've used pretty successfully across Northeast Oregon since 2019. And these people come from all walks of life. They often sometimes don't have that much outdoor experience before they come out. We have people from everywhere from New York City to rural Oregon, but they certainly get it while they're here. They put a lot of work in with chainsaws and hand tools and learning lots of new skills, as well as just the basics of riparian ecology. And altogether, include with this project and the others, these crews were out on the landscape for about 6 weeks each summer and camping the whole time. And yeah, so this project accomplished some really high quality restoration work at a relatively low cost, and at the same time while providing these young adults with a really cool, unique experience that they'll be able to remember for a long time. And just from talking with them, A lot of them left with a real newfound interest in riparian ecology and restoration. We even heard about one kid who was a college student from the 2023 crew who actually changed his major because of his experience at Sheep Creek. He had such a good time that he decided that restoration and conservation was something he wanted to go into. And we heard that from his friend who he convinced to come out and join us for the next summer. And of course, the bigger picture end result is that Sheep Creek's in a much better trajectory. These are drone shots that show the project area during high flows last spring. And the BDAs and the other treatments we have in here are creating just a huge amount of floodplain activation at dynamism, not just at high flows, but at low flows as well. In total, we think it's about 100 acres of wetland habitat that's been reconnected. And this is a shot at low flow that shows several of the BDAs during the summer. And it's pretty rare to see green grass around here during that time of year. But the reason is this is essentially turned into a marsh. There's water running through the grass, being pushed off out of channel by the BDAs. And those are, of course, storing water and helping all the newly planted willows and other plants that we put in to grow. And we don't have beavers here currently, but they've been here before in the last few years. And we think with the amount of just vegetation recovery that's happening, we expect them to show up sooner rather than later. So we're excited to see that, and hopefully they take the reins in the next few years. So that's all I have. With that, I'll open up the floor to any questions.
This is just amazing. I love seeing these projects. I love seeing free form watersheds, and it's like getting out of a box and being able to stretch your arms for the first time. So it's spectacular to see. I love to see the work you guys are doing. You said there has been beaver in the area, but do you know where the closest population is to this area that's current?
Yeah, so there's some in the upper Grand Ronde, probably I'd say about 5 or 6 miles from the project site, river miles. So yeah, there were a few that showed up about 5 years ago in one area of the project that had some existing willows, and they hung out and they built some dams for a couple of years and then ran out of food. But things are a lot different now with all of the planting that's happened. So, and we've been seeing a lot of activity in the upper Grand Ronde. So I don't think it'll be long at all. We're actually hoping that they give us a little bit more time for the plants to grow a little more.
Yeah, hey, Noel, a really interesting project, and it looks like it's really nicely put together. I was just curious how you recruit the participants for the Hand Crew initiative, and if that was funded separately or sort of a separate program that you paired with this, or how that intersection worked.
Yeah, so we contract with the Northwest Youth Corps and the other youth corps, so they do the recruiting and the hiring of those folks. But in addition, we also bring on a couple of seasonals generally every year, and that's just a nationwide job application we send out to colleges and everywhere we can.
Yeah, nicely done. Thanks for
as
sharing
far
with
as
us.
Yeah, thank you. As far as funding, we did have funding that came through a Forest Service agreement and a BLM agreement as well as some funding from the Bureau of Reclamation and others.
Well, thank you so much, Noel. That was just a fantastic presentation, and the images, I'll just echo that the images were really great from those drone shots. Really great to see the great work you've been doing, and also nice to hear the impact on youth in changing their majors. That's major. So thanks for sharing. Yeah, appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Any
Thanks,
other
everybody.
questions from the committee? Nope. Thanks, Noel. Thanks for taking the time. All right. Well, we can go ahead and move into our next agenda item, which is public comment. I haven't heard from any members of the public but if does anyone want to provide public comment for today's meeting, any of our agenda items or priorities for the OCRF that we'd like to comment on? Now would be the time. I'm seeing a comment from James Fraser. He's providing more information on the Hand Crew Initiative. Great. Thank you, James. Okay, we can close public comment. I didn't hear from anybody. And next on our agenda is, well, we have a break scheduled, but I am thinking of skipping it and having everybody get out just a little bit earlier if we move ahead, because we only have one or two more agenda items after that. Is everyone all right with skipping the break today? Okay, I'm seeing a nod from Marette. Okay, so next we had a communications update from Mauricio, but he is not here today. But I can just give a quick update from what I know about the communications planning. And that is that Quinn Thomas, they're going to be having their meeting tomorrow. So if anyone would like to join that, I can forward that out to the group. I know Kelly had some interest in joining potentially. And so I'll send that out to the committee after our meeting today. Oh, no worries, Kelly. I see you're missing the last meeting. No worries. So they're kind of moving into this rebrand discussion, and that's what's next. They're talking about the OCRF logo, and that's kind of on the docket for tomorrow. So we'll see how that goes. But it's been going well so far, and I think they're just trying to, at this point, put together the creative products, which we haven't seen very many of them yet. Go ahead, Mark Stern.
Oh, well, Mark Labhart was first, so I'll defer there.
Oh, sorry, wrong Mark. Mark Labhart, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. While we're on Mauricio, I just wanted to let the advisory committee know that I just got my agenda for the commission meeting next Friday, and Mauricio and Mark Stern are going to be giving remarks regarding the OCRF advisory committee to the commission. So if you have anything you'd like them to say or comments, but look forward to their presentation before the commissions. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Labhart. That was that's a great update to provide to the group that I had forgotten to mention.
Yeah, just clarify, and maybe I'm wrong because I had a call with Reva and with Sarah. I think it's the day before the official commission meeting where ODF&W is organizing sort of a urban outreach roundtable in Portland, and has invited a number of the grant applicants or grant recipients or partners from the Portland area who've been involved in this. And I think Mauricio and Carl were invited, and then I was tagged when Carl couldn't make the trip to Portland. So
you are correct.
So I
it
think
is Thursday, sorry.
Yeah, I think it's on the 13th, if I remember right, and glad to carry forth any message others on the committee would like to see shared.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. And so Mauricio and Mark are going to be there for that panel, and feel free to send him any comments you'd like to bring to that discussion for the commission.
Yeah, I'd raise my hand on a different question, going back to the communications plan. I know when we talked about it a while ago, some of the idea was that there'd be some information ready and available to share with the legislative session. And I just wondered how that's looking in terms of timing, if they will have some products to share out here soon.
So they have on their list of products is a one-pager legislative handout. We haven't seen it yet, but I believe they're working on it. And I can ask about timeline at tomorrow's meeting as well. So that's on the list of communication products that they're supposed to be providing for the OCRF.
Yeah, that'd be great, because I think there's actually a hearing on Wednesday.
There is, right.
Part of the water bill where OCRF is going to be mentioned. So the time would be now to have those kind of products available.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't quite have it in hand yet, but we do have the handout that Mauricio has created for the OCRF, so that we could still use that. But yeah, once we have that handout, it'll be very useful for these quick hearings.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other questions about communications planning or OCRF panels? Okay, I think we might be getting out pretty early today, because the last thing I had for today's meeting was, I'll just share my screen. A quick discussion for RFP future planning before we take off for the day. So let's see. Because for your spring 2025 RFP, we kind of already went over the budget. And as was approved today, the $1,027,000, we'll have about $1 million that we could do for the spring 2025 RFP. But I wanted to hear from the committee what you are thinking when it comes to, let's see. So total award amount, if that was kind of already discussed, but yeah, still wanted to do the rest of drought funds, which would be about 800,000 minus 27,000, I believe. And then if you're thinking of doing about $1 million in total, and then also what the committee's thoughts are on maximum grant request. Do you think that it's been working? The projects that you're getting, are you thinking that $100,000 maximum grant request for drought projects is working for the program, and then the 50,000 for non-drought? What your thoughts might be on that? So anyone have any thoughts on maximum grant amount for spring 2025? Go ahead, Kelly.
I feel like I'm shooting myself in the foot a little bit of being a grant writer and asking people for money, but we do have a lot of really good projects that come up. And so I'm wondering about lowering the drought one just a little bit, or bringing them, maybe they're both 60,000, or, you know, just kind of equaling the two out a little bit. And I would also vote that, I mean, we've got 866,000 in our base program. So I would be comfortable raising the base program up just a little bit, and maybe we do a little bit more next time. But I think, again, we're going to have to set things in motion before we really know what's going on. But we don't have to, you know, tell people what our maximum limit is at this point. But I would be comfortable increasing that a little bit.
Great, thanks, Kelly. So maybe evening it out, or increasing the non-drought up to, and then lowering the drought fund a little bit.
Yeah, just thinking. I mean, it's just, you know, I have a project that's like 1.9 million coming up in 2026, and I already have 6 grants, and I have still another 700,000 to go. So it's really hard when you start managing all these pots of money, but it's also, I know, like, everybody likes to spread their money out. So I don't know. Again, I'm mixed. And now that I'm on the other side of it, I'm like, ooh, let's do some more projects. But then I'm like, oh my God, save me from writing 400 grants to fund one thing.
Understood. All right, Jane, go ahead, Jane.
I agree with part of what Kelly said, that I sort of like to see the grant amount a little bit lower so we can help more people, because I think they can be resourceful about rounding up the rest of what they need. But again, Reva, that means more work for you and more work for the staff. So I guess you could maybe tell us how you're feeling about your ability to manage one or two more projects. I guess if I was looking at this, I would maybe do, I don't, just off the top of my head, like 80,000 for the drought projects and 50,000 for non-drought. I would keep the 50,000 for non-drought. Again, just so we can fund maybe one or two more projects.
Stretch that, widen the net a little bit to reach more folks. Yeah, thanks, Jane. And so what I've said in the past is about 20 projects per round is kind of the administrative capacity for myself. And then we typically have like one contract specialist who's putting out all these contracts with organizations. So keeping around 20 projects per round is doable. I think if you added or one or two, it's not terrible. So I'm flexible kind of around that 20 project range is what's been working. I would think 30 and around would really overwhelm the program. And so that would probably be too much, but keeping it right around 20 to 23. We've done 25 and it was a big load. But yeah, just keeping it around there would be great. So there's some flexibility with if there were lower project maximums and we had more projects, we could probably fund around 20, 23 projects and around.
I guess one other thought that comes to my mind is to maybe to raise the non-drought amount a little bit above 200,000, just because it's whether the maximum grant is 50 or dropped a little bit. It just, we're not able to fund very many of those non-drought projects. So if we even just bump that to 250, it might give a little more opportunity there.
Right. Okay, that's a good thought. What does everyone think of that?
When do we need to decide? I guess that's the other thing. When we
don't need to decide right now. It's just good for me to plan when I'm preparing the applications and in the software program. So I'll be adjusting some of the maximum limits in there. And but we can decide at the next meeting in March.
But you'll post this sometime this spring, right? Yeah.
And we still need to determine the timeline for spring RFP as well. So we'll be discussing that at the next meeting to nail down that timeline. Yeah. And speaking of next meeting, it has moved to, I've shifted it to March 6th, and that's a Thursday, so not a Tuesday. So it got rescheduled, and let me know if that doesn't work for anybody. And we can adjust as needed. So it's March 6th at 1 o'clock, but please reach out if that doesn't work out. Okay, great. All right, folks. Oh, Jim just is joining us back right now, back from his dentist appointment. Go ahead, Liza Jane.
Thank you. Do we have any plans to get together in real life in the future?
Yeah, great question. I was thinking June could be a good time. We might try to plan it around when you'll be doing the project recommendations for the spring round, because that might be a good meeting to get together, which will probably be June or July. It'll be over the summer. So yeah, we'll reach out about having an in-person meeting. And then I heard positive things about the project tour last year. And so we're kind of thinking about doing something like that again. I don't know if there's still interest in that, but we could do like an in-person summer meeting and then plan for a tour either the day before or day after that, so that folks who are traveling can have like a 2-day event to make the trip worth it, as you will.
I was thinking too, I think what I heard Mark Stern say was the idea of a roundtable prior to, as we're reading these, it would be really valuable to kind of get everybody's feedback on projects, if that's possible to do that before, earlier than later when we're making recommendations. It's a little bit late for that kind of information, I think.
So like a week before? Or,
I don't know. It would just, if that was possible to, you know, have a in-person conversation is what I pictured, around a table talking about the different applications, if that's appropriate.
Gotcha.
Or
Okay.
would be useful.
Yeah, it would have to be a public meeting, but we can make that happen. Yep.
Is that what you were thinking, Mark?
Well, I realized when I said it by the rules, it might have to be a public meeting, but some sort of informal conversation where we just get a chance to sort of brainstorm and share what the different proposals are, and would give me more context and appreciation for the other proposals, as well as thinking about the ones I'm reviewing.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, yeah, that's something I can try to plan for the next round. So ahead of the project recommendations, after folks have had a chance to review, plan a meeting for everyone to come together and have a roundtable discussion. I can get that planned. Great.
And Reva, we're talking about doing this before we do our ratings. Okay, because I thought that actually last year it worked. Last summer, it worked pretty well. We'd already done the ratings. We came in, we looked at it. We didn't really adjust. We talked about, where things fell. We didn't do any changes to the ratings. We did do some changing to the cut line. And I thought that went okay too. It gave us a chance to discuss the various programs. And I think it's going to be sort of tough doing either one. And I think there's value to doing it either way. But some just certainly FaceTime and doing some face-to-face discussions is very valuable. I found that really worthwhile for me.
Okay, that's helpful. That's good to hear. Thanks, Jim. So being in person is really valuable for these discussions. It sounds like it's what I'm hearing from the group. Go ahead, Jane.
I was just thinking, I think that I like the way we did it before, where we had already looked at the proposals before that we had that roundtable. I think doing it before we've rated them, we haven't even read them. So I would do it
right
after or during that time, maybe during
the process, kind of maybe right before we've got to meet to make those final project recommendations.
Mm-hmm. I'd hate to hold up the projects, or that may hold up the timeline longer. It's already really long. But maybe if that happened right before you add up the scores and see where we are. Or I don't know. Or you do that and then we have a little Zoom. Didn't we do it once where we got together in smaller groups, where we had like 3 groups? So you got to hear from some of the people that rated some proposals that you didn't. I can't remember. It seems like I remember that. That it wasn't like the whole group talking about all the projects, but it was more like, a group of 4 or something. I don't know.
I see. So less than a quorum met, like a subcommittee meeting. Go ahead, Maurette.
So Jane, I wonder if that was when we were meeting with ODF&W specialists. We had these little, Charlotte set up little meetings so we could, before we had the system we have now, It was just a matter of getting together on the phone or in little meetings with specialists on various topics, and then you could join whoever you wanted. But I was also going to say, I wonder if, I know Salem is central and it makes things a lot easier for you guys that are organizing the meetings, but I'm wondering too if we could have a meeting outside of Salem, someplace where there's a cluster of projects that we haven't seen, just to mix it up a little.
Yeah, that we would need to kind of find a meeting space, I think, but I'm open to that.
I'm open to it too, but that's an incredible room you have in Salem for having a meeting that's both in person and virtual at the same time. That it's hard to find those kind of places.
It is, yeah. The hybrid setup is it does fit our needs, suit our needs pretty well. So we need to find something like that if we were gonna meet in like a Central Oregon or other location.
Reba, I'll throw out one more idea, and I don't know that it's possible, but you know, the grant software that we're using works really well. It'd also be interesting if we could see other people's review and comment. Not, I know somehow, you know, they wanted us to do it sort of in isolation of our own, but even just that would be a way for us to see review of projects that we weren't involved with. And it's probably a whole systems change sort of thing, but
Yeah,
a
I
lot
could
of
look
info-
into that. There might be some setting I was actually trying to figure that out. Because I have been sharing the technical reviewers feedback through email because I wasn't able to figure out how to do it through the software yet. But there must be a way. I can reach out to the fondant technical staff and try to figure that out. And if I'm able to figure that out, then I should be able to figure out how for you to see other committee reviewers' comments as well.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
They're also doing updates on the grant software, so maybe one of those updates has already figured that issue out. Liza Jane, go ahead.
Just when you get to poking around looking for a place, OWEB meets all over the state, and there's I might be able to help you with location, with rooms, with being able to set up virtual and stuff, because it gets done lots of places, and I would love to pick Central or South, you know, somewhere to get out a project.
And you are it's a very far drive for you to come all the way to Salem. So yeah, if we could get more centrally located, that would be better. Thanks, Liza Jane. So you might have some meeting locations.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. You're always welcome to come here.
That would be nice. Go ahead, Jane.
I would just request that, you know, the summer is filling up fast. So if we decide we're going to do this, we should probably commit to the dates fairly quickly.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll all fill them up with other things. So would it just be like the day, would it be just the day of the regular June meeting, but we might have a day before and after that? Or if we could at least decide that much, then we can tentatively block it out on our schedules. Okay. Even though we don't know what it is.
I have tentatively put June 4th as an in-person meeting. And then let me just pull up the meeting page. Sorry, that's June 3rd. June 3rd, potentially for the in-person meeting. And then we could do a site visit either the day before or the day after that, depending on what works for the project site and for the committee.
Yeah, personally, I'll just put a plug in for like a tour the afternoon before, because it would give you the day to drive over, you know, and then, you know, we can have dinner together that evening and then kind of handle our business the next day.
Yeah.
Head out. Yeah.
I like that.
Warmer than colder and all the things.
I like that. Thanks, Kelly. So maybe June 2nd, June 3rd, we can put a, right now I'll put a tentative hold on your calendars for that. But I will keep you updated if anything changes. All right, well, thanks for, it looks like we're still gonna be getting out a little early today. But thanks everyone for taking the time and approving some great projects today. I appreciate all the work you've put into the reviews of these and then spending time to make this happen. So appreciate you all. And yeah, thanks again for everything you do. It's been a great
Thank you,
meeting today.
Reva. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Reva.
Well, thanks everyone. Hope you have a great
Bye.
rest of your day. All righty.